then, let me just see, Leetcode, resume at 1. Okay, great. All right. Well, I mean, let's just get right into it then. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the format, but these are going to be an hour long. We're going to be, we usually do introductions at the start. We're going to skip that. We're going to do the end if you're interested, but we're going to get to about 45 minutes to 50 minutes of working time. Okay.
Hmm.
And then the last 10 or 15 or so will be for feedback and for any questions you might have for me. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, cool. So these problems I'll dictate. You're free to, of course, pause me, take notes in the code. Just write down. You can just write comments, or just write in the coder pad,
Okay.
etc. And we'll just go right in from there. So the first question is going to be a variation of valid palindrome. So do you know what palindromes are?
But the same forward and backwards?
Yes, they're the same forwards and backwards. Okay. So we write a function to check if a string is a valid palindrome, but there are some special conditions that we're gonna have. Okay, so the first condition we're gonna have is that we ignore all non-alphanumeric characters. So if it's not alphanumeric, it doesn't count. It's ignored. Okay.
Okay.
The second thing is that it is case sensitive. Okay, it is case
Okay.
sensitive. It's case sensitive. Okay, so I'm gonna just start with just these two conditions, and then we'll build on that.
Okay. So same forwards and backwards. Includes all alphanumeric characters and it's case sensitive. Oops. And the string can be any length?
Yes, that's right.
So I assume since it's a we want to check for a palindrome. We want to have two pointers, one at the start and one at the back. And then we compare the characters, but if either of the characters are non-alphanumeric, we'd move the pointer either the front pointer to the right or the back pointer to the left. And it's case sensitive. If I just compare the characters directly, it should be fine.
Okay.
First, I probably get the length of the string. And then initiate my pointers. Okay, I'd want to compare the characters. Okay, if they're ever not, I need to check what they are first and move them. Oh, and I'm returning a Boolean, right?
Yeah, that's right. Return boolean. Yeah.
Okay. And I still need to make sure I increment, decrement, and then make sure I take care of the alphanumeric. To keep moving L and R until they're valid alphanumerics while making sure they still are in bound. I don't remember the Python function to check. I think it's is L. Oh wait, this has. Can I just keep typing until I find that one?
Are you looking looking for
library function.
what function?
Is alf num. I know there's a Python function that can.
Yeah, it's alnum. You can use that.
It's alf num. Okay, thank you. Let's take it. Okay. So I need to keep going until I need to make sure it's. Oh, so maybe I should do it before.
Are we thinking about what to have, like how to handle the situation where the current letter is alphanumeric or is not alphanumeric?
Oh, is not.
It's
I
not.
just
So
wanna.
how?
I'm trying to move them
Okay, and what?
move
So
them
if
both
it's
until
not,
they're
what do you
both
want to do?
valid. Sorry?
Well, so if it's not alphanumeric, what do you want to do?
I want to skip it. I want
Okay.
to move the either L forward or R backwards, but I also want to make sure that this while loop is still maintained, or if it'll leave if it's. Oh, actually, I can just break after, I guess. I also need to do it for R. And I still need to make sure this is maintained. They be the same, yeah. Okay, I'm not sure this is right, but let's try an example. Did I ever compare them? Oh, I did. Same. String. Just give it an easy without anything first to see if it'll work.
Okay.
Initialize with this. Oh. R would be 3, so less than 3. Well, this is correct. Well, it's not. No, but it is, so this would pass, this would pass. So L is greater than. And then I'd compare them. Oh, I need to increment them still. Okay, so this passes. So increments to 1 and 2. Then it compares B and this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, it's fine. Fine, and it returns true. So a more difficult example with some symbols in it.
Could you just quickly give me a voiceover for what the
Sorry.
title is, what the current test case?
Oh, I just wanted a test case to try with some non-alphanumeric characters to see what happens.
Great, makes sense. And what would the correct return be for this string?
Oh, actually, it's true, I guess, because we ignored the.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. If A and A, this is fine. This is fine. They're not the same, so I increment and decrement them. Oops. And then while it's not, this tries to move up, this moves down. So now this isn't true, so it returns false. Oh, that's a problem. I wanted to ignore it, but then
So what's going on here? So we're looking at the case.
so
we're
we have an
comparing
issue with
L equals
yeah.
1 and R equals
So we know that
2.
they're not the same, but we tried to ignore it by moving it up and down. But then the problem is that since my 2 pointers are out of range, it returns false. But I actually want it to return true.
Right. So why does this return false?
Why does it return false?
Yeah.
Or,
like what? Like obviously, I mean, it turns out because you said it turns false. But why do you think if the left pointer is further right than the right pointer, it should be false?
so it doesn't mean it's false. I guess it just means I'm done. I don't need to compare any more values.
Yeah.
Case is it? Oh, since I haven't returned false already, then I think I can just return true. Because I checked every value. I've passed the point. Oh, I think that's just.
Okay.
Okay, so in this case, it's returned true. Just quickly test an odd length. What should happen in an odd length? It would be the same until they both hit this character when L equals R, so it's still going the loop. It increment, decrement, and it end here. Case sensitive. What happens if there's no? What should an empty? Is an empty string considered true? Valid palindrome?
That's an interesting question. I would say yes. I would say yes, just because there isn't the negative condition being met. So I would say yes, an empty string would be considered palindrome.
Okay, I don't have to take care of that case then. Huh. I'm not sure where to proceed from here.
Does that change anything about the algorithm though? Like if you had, let's say, a string of only symbols, would
If I had a string of only symbols,
would that be a problem?
That'd be a problem if I had a string with only symbols. So a string with is the expected value for that true or false? Because I ignore them all, and would it be considered an empty string?
Previously said if empty string is considered a valid palindrome, then
right.
All symbols would also be valid. As it would reduce to an empty string, essentially, right?
Okay, it reduced to empty string. So in that case, these pointers would keep going. No bound. This would go and this would fail after it passed R at the end. Okay. Because I didn't catch the case where I didn't consider that this would not end early. It could actually just keep going, so I need to add a bounds to both of them.
Yep.
And in that case, this would stop. This would stop at n, this would stop at -1, and then it would be able to return true in that case.
Okay. Looks pretty good right now.
Uh-huh. I'm not sure what's next.
Okay. Are you happy with this solution?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's chill. Okay, let's add another condition then.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, actually, before we go to a condition, let's just quickly go over the time and space of this function, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So time. It's just going through the entire string, so it should be O of n, and we're not using any extra space, so it's constant.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so third condition. The third condition is if it's not a palindrome, you can remove up to one character anywhere to try and make it a palindrome.
So I would still return true.
So it's still true or false.
Oh, so if it's possible.
If it's possible to, if it's not a palindrome, if it is a palindrome, you return true. If it's not a palindrome, you return true if you can make it a palindrome after removing one character anywhere.
Oh, that's an interesting condition. Well, the brute force solution would be to remove it at each and then call this, but I think we can do better. It's not a palindrome. I can remove up to one character anywhere. I feel like we need to rewrite this then.
I mean, we can start by just drafting a simple solution.
Okay.
Right. So you had an idea there.
Right.
Why don't you just quickly bang that one out real quick, and we can talk about that.
Okay. Okay.
So you can keep this
My
function
other-
around, right? So you
Yeah.
might still have use of just keeping this around. You might just want to make a separate function to do this.
So if it's not a palindrome and we try removing every, and we try calling this for every string that has one less character, okay, then we return false in that case.
You might just want to make this another top level function.
Oh, no wonder grayed out. Wait. How can I remove a character? Oh, I can slice. Slice it. I need to call this.
Well, it might be a bit easier to think if you flip the condition. So like, if valid palindrome, just return true.
Then I can just return true, and then
yeah, just get out of that branch. Yeah.
Otherwise, I can I want to slice this. Wait, I want to remove the character. Let's see, how can I remove the character?
So you're removing index I, right?
Right.
Okay.
So I want to get this will go to does not include I. And this does not include I wanted to try it at every. I can remove up to one character and try to make a palindrome. So I want to try to make it a palindrome. If any of these work, then I can return true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
I guess it's time to test it. This one, the original one, is not a palindrome.
Yep.
Return not there. And then for iron range, try to remove. Okay. We'd have this left. Then palindrome. No palindrome. Remove the B. At the very end, it'd be a palindrome, and then I can turn true.
Mm-hmm.
And if none of this, if the original wasn't a palindrome, and removing a character at any place is in palindrome, then return false.
Yep. How are you feeling about the current implementation?
It should work,
Okay.
but
I think
I'm
it
not
should
sure
too.
if it's optimal.
That's okay. We can work on that. But before we work on improving it, why don't you, well, why don't we go through the time and space of this one, of this new problem?
So this time um we have a for loop here, which
Okay.
goes in I range n. So we have n, and then the original checking was n, so n
Uh-huh.
squared.
Okay.
And then we're still not using any more space, still constant space. So yeah,
So
constant space.
constant space. Okay. Okay. Let's work on improving the time here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, as you have correctly, formed some intuition about, this is not optimal in terms of time, right? Um, let's think about this case over here. That you have. I'll delete this one. Okay. Um, right. So as a regular, and for the sake of this argument, I'll just get rid of the symbols. The symbols don't matter here. Okay.
Okay.
So, you know, the main thing here is this is obviously not a palindrome, but we know that if we remove one of them, they will be. In fact, I'll put it over here
Right.
so it's easier to do some iteration. Okay. So the thing is, let's say that you have, that you remove a, some letter. You can check if it's palindrome. That's fine and dandy. But one thing you might notice is that your palindrome checks, your palindrome, twist my words, your valid palindrome function checks the entire string, no matter where you remove the character, right? So if you imagine like a larger string, right? Like this is hard to do. A B C D E F G F E D C B A, right? I hope that's right.
Mm-hmm.
This is a palindrome, okay?
Right.
And if I add like something over here, like an x, if I remove x and I'm in like I equals, what is that, like 5, right? And remove it. So this is the input, right? This becomes the input to the valid palindrome. You still check all the previous pairs, right?
Right.
You still check the previous pairs because this function has no context about what was removed. Does that make sense?
Right. Right.
Okay. So here's some intuition to help you along. Let's say, this is just obviously a fake example, but let's say we have this x over here, right? Is there a way to tell this function, hey, up until x, everything is good, right? Like up until like this is good, and then this is good, right? So if I give you x, let's say let's say for example I give you like index, some removed index, right? Removed index. Please start the string from s from index. Oh, just right. It's removed. From here onwards, and then of course you would also shave it off the end, right? Like, is there a way you can do that? And the reason I'm giving you that intuition is because if you can do that, you guarantee that the cumulative search of the valid palindrome, it might be less than the actual total amount, right? The total string every time. So if you can reduce the search space every time, you can improve the performance there. So what are your first thoughts when it comes to this sort of optimization? Do you have an idea for what you might want to change? What and by the way, I'm just you might not actually want a parameter here. For example, you can actually just pass in the string that's already shaved, etc. It doesn't really matter what you do here, but that's an idea. Right. Do you have other ideas for how you might want to accomplish this?
That sounded pretty good to me, honestly.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't you give it a shot and see where you get.
Okay. So essentially, we'd pass in what index we're up to, and then oh wait, what's the point of
I'm gonna actually hop in here and give one more kind of direction here.
Uh-huh.
This loop over here, I mean, it's fine, but I think it's better to be a bit more explicit. Okay. And what I mean by that is, can we, instead of just blindly iterating over everything, which we do need to do anyways, but can we think about the iteration in terms of I or L and R already? Right. And what I mean by that is, right, um, if let's say no, let's say our example here, and we do the valid palindrome check, right? Like, if we know that this, right, so the first 5 letters, I'll write it underneath here.
Yep.
Right. Let's do it this way. That didn't work. EDCBA. We know that the first 5 letters match, right? Like you could check that, right? You know that the first 5 letters match, and so you know that you never want to remove any of these 5.
I know I never want to. Uh-huh.
Right? So we actually only want to consider removing a character if L and R, which is X and F in this case, if they don't match. Then we want to remove either X or F. Right?
Uh-huh.
So I would suggest you actually write a little logic here to check. You should only remove, like, don't blindly remove. Don't remove without any condition. Only remove
Right.
if the L and R don't match. Right? If they match, you never want to remove it, right? Because they match.
That's true.
So take that into consideration.
Check L and R. Okay, so I can either move this one or move R. Huh. Wait, I think I'm just blindly following. I don't actually understand what I'm doing.
Okay.
Okay, I understand the logic here that we only want to check if
Yes.
they match, or else we're just checking characters pointlessly, or we're calling this pointlessly. I also understood that.
Right. So we have our guy over here. What the heck is this indenting? Okay. So here's the situation. Okay.
Yep.
We have our string, and we need to check 2 strings. Okay. So we need to check is valid for so we remove X. So that's going to be F FGF. I can't type FGF, right? And we also need to, but we don't know that's right? Obviously, we can look at the example, but in reality, we don't know if it's right. So we also need to check. So this is going to be remove L, right? So let's move this, and we need to remove R, which is valid for XFG, right? Like if you delete these 5, which we don't want, right? Because those are correct. So we want to either remove the right one or the left one, right? If you remove the X, you want to put in XFG. If you move the right, then you'll put in XFG.
Right.
Right. So you actually have 2 conditions when you remove. When L and R don't match, there's 2 possibilities.
Right.
So you need to figure out how to pass these 2 strings into the function.
Right.
And I'll get rid of the removed index because that's actually really not needed here. Right. So can you figure that out? I'll put the string over here for you again.
For this one, we start at L.
Right. So L is at X.
Then where do we end? At F, just make R. L here. What is my R? R should be my F.
Do you want to write out exactly what L and R equal in this case?
Yeah.
So what is this equal? So we just finished A, B, C, D, E, right? Our L is at X. What is that? What index is that? Yeah, 5. Okay, and what is R? Yes, 8. Okay, I agree. They don't equal. And then we want the first one. We want this to be remove left, which makes it FGF. When this is remove right, which is XFG. Yes. Okay, so what index is this? F is 1 more than L. Right? L is at X, so we want this to be L plus 1. Right? We want to do 1 more. Start at the 1 more.
Right.
Right? Start at X6. And R equals 8. 8 is currently at F. Is that acceptable?
It does not include that.
Yeah, so we need to. Okay. And in this one, right, we don't want to remove L, so we want L to start right where it is because it's already at X. And then where should R be? R needs to point to
G.
To the G. Yeah.
So it should be at F because it won't include. So 8 because it won't include the last one.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me just verify. So if not the same character. So if they are the same character, we just increment the pointers.
Yep.
Move the pointers, and then we finally reach this. And then we realize they're not the same. So we call it this. Not, we move them up again. Sorry, I'm like checked out. Like a little
Yeah,
stressed.
yeah. I mean, I think that the indexes here are right. Right. We have the FGF check. We have the XFG check. These are the two strings that we needed to check because again, right? If you're at an impasse where your L and R, where your L and R aren't equal, you have to check both. And in
Mm-hmm.
both cases, you are checking that, right? And so
Yes.
the original logic we had, which is that because we are no longer checking the entire string every time in the valid palindrome call, why is there a comma there? We're able to essentially save the time complexity there as we never double check
Right.
an index,
Right.
right? Okay. So given that, can you walk me through the time and space in this case?
Um. Okay. Let me just. This is n. We're not double checking anymore. It should just be O of n then.
Okay, for time.
Yes.
Okay, and what about space?
We're still not using any extra space, so
Mm-hmm.
it's constant.
Okay. So you said in time. Okay, cool. All right. We're almost at time, but so we don't have time to do another follow up. But I
Yeah.
did want to ask another follow up, and
Okay.
see if what kind of intuition or what sort of ideas that you would explore if you had more time. Okay.
Okay.
So for this follow up, in addition to just being given S, you're also given integer k. Okay. And k represents the number of characters you are allowed to remove, up to k, 0 through k. You can remove 0, you can remove, if k is like 5, you can remove 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 characters.
And
You
then
can remove up to k. How would you adapt your solution, if you would, or would you write a new one, or what sort of intuition do you have for this problem?
okay, so instead of what we did earlier, which was one character, we can remove up to k characters.
Yep. Do you have an intuition for that? Does a current approach work? Do
Nope,
we need a
because
new
we only
approach?
remove one character.
Yeah.
But maybe we can use some of this part to keep going until we don't match.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, we can remove up to k.
Yeah, so we're thinking about adapting sort of the current solution, at least the beginning of it, with a while loop, as we were thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I think that would be a reasonable start, but because we're out of time today, we'll
Yeah.
stop it here.
Mhm.
Okay, so before we take any feedback, I want to just ask you, like, how do you feel about it? What sort of strengths do you think you show? What were the weaknesses? And of course, I can give a little review afterwards.
Okay. So I get really nervous, and then when I get stuck, it's really hard for me to voice out what I'm thinking because I'm not confident in what I'm thinking. I think that's an issue.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the biggest issue. I just get stuck a lot, and I don't know how to get
Yeah. I
around
see.
that.
Mm-hmm. How I mean, we'll talk about that. That's no problem. About the actual solutions themselves, do you think they're correct? And do you think I mean, let's start there. Like, do you think they're correct right now? Like, how confident are you actually? You don't have to be. You don't have to be sure. I'm just not like because the interview, the mock is over. We're just asking the feedback now.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they're actually correct or not? I'm not saying they're wrong or right. I'm just asking you. Like, do you think they're correct?
I'm not confident 100% because sometimes when I do it, because when I'm practicing, I
Yeah.
can run it and I can see the test
Yes.
cases, and sometimes I'll miss test cases, so it's
Yeah.
really hard for me to tell if I'm missing stuff.
Okay. Is that for both parts 1 and 2?
Uh,
Like
yeah.
this? Okay. Okay. If you had to put a percentage on like how confident you think would be, like would it be like 50? Like
This one's probably like 80 because this one's a
okay.
lot simpler. But this one I actually, because I didn't come up with it myself. I got it basically from you. So
Yep.
I didn't really, yeah. It's a lot, maybe like 40.
Okay. Okay. Fair. All right. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And then about the time and space, how confident are you about that?
That one should be fine.
Okay.
At least for this one, it's fine. This one, because we're not double checking, so we should only be checking them once, or I think once, yeah. So it should
Okay.
be linear.
Okay. Cool. Let's talk about it. So,
Okay.
first of all, I know you're nervous. I know this is a different sort of performance. That's why we practice, right? Like
Yeah.
that's why we do the mocks. That's why we get
Yeah.
nervous here instead of on the real interview. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we'll get nervous on interview. I'm just saying that you will get nervous on interview. So it's
Yeah.
better you practice it now, how to perform when
Yep.
you're nervous,
Yep.
right? So just to frame the mindset, don't practice to not be nervous.
Yep.
Practice to perform when you're nervous. Okay.
Yep.
So that's a mindset thing. Now, a couple things off the bat. Good notes, right? Good notes. Lay out the test cases or lay out the conditions. That's very good. I would say you can be even better if you just immediately lay out a couple like strings you think might be edge cases, right? Just immediately bang out a couple of those, right? One thing you
Yep.
caught later on was, oh, what about an empty string, right? But you don't need to wait till halfway to ask that, right? Like
Yeah.
for this case, it wouldn't affect your solution at all if I said either way. But like
Mm-hmm.
whenever you see a problem, so the input's a string, you should immediately go like, all right, what are the string edge cases? Empty string, null string, string with
Yep.
not okay, maybe not this like non-Unicode. Like don't worry about that. But like oh, it's a tree question. Okay, null root, left and child, balanced tree,
Yep.
sorted tree, right? So whenever you hear a problem, you should immediately go like, okay, what's the input type? Great. Here's my 5 immediate questions for edge cases about this input type, right? So
Yep.
that's something you could. I mean, I'm sure you can think of those, but just bang out, just memorize them, right? Strings,
Great.
lists, heaps, whatever it is. Just memorize the edge cases and just bang those out. Okay. You don't want to miss those if they're actually gonna affect the problem. Okay.
Okay.
That's the
Actually,
first thing.
a quick side note. I guess
Yeah.
for the specific case, I asked this question,
Yes.
but I thought that it wouldn't really affect it because either way, I could just check if it was empty at the beginning and then return true or false. But
That's
I
right.
knew
Yes,
it came
that's
out
right.
a little
It's
later.
true. But for strings, there are some other things you might want to consider. In this case,
Great.
so I would say this depends on where you're at with your Leetcode journey. There
Great.
are some really big sticklers, like people who really care about the various edge cases. Um,
Great.
for example, you might be asked how many characters is an emoji. If you think of an emoji on various things, you think it's one character. Actually, emojis are typically 2 characters long. Does it matter for this problem? Sort of, because you have to index it. But again, I'm not going to be docking marks there, right? But I'm just saying, like,
I
whenever
see.
you have these problems and these inputs, just ahead of time, just memorize all the edge cases, right?
Right.
So then
Okay.
you don't have to. The goal is that you don't have to think about it, because when you think, you could be
Right.
wrong,
Right.
right? So just don't think about it. Just memorize that. Okay. So that's a little tip there. Again, I agree for this problem, it didn't make a difference. All right, I agree with that. But just as a tip, okay.
Yep.
All right. So moving on. Clarified usage of the is alphanumeric function. Usually they'll let you use that. If they don't, I hope you know regex, or you know your ASCII.
I'll try my best.
I mean, the thing is, okay, like if it's a Python thing, people know. All right, you probably just learned Python for the interview, but generally speaking, though, like you should know a little bit. Like, you should know a little bit
Yeah.
about that, right? At least you should
Yeah.
know how to use a regex engine for the language of your choice. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I mean, the immediate function here, the first one, the first bug, you caught with a prompt, right? So you caught this bug over here that was
Right.
returning false. Caught it with a prompt. Not too bad. Generally speaking, though, for these kind of problems, you want to make sure that whenever you write a condition, you think about a case in your head that triggers that condition and sees for yourself, like, oh, is that what I expect, right?
Right.
In this case, you need a little help on that front. Not too bad,
Yeah.
but you did catch it when I gave the prompt, so that's okay. Um, the overflow over here, again, this is okay. There's a little prompt here as well, but you did catch it, so that's okay. right? But again, in general, right, if you're using a while loop, you got to make sure a while loop terminates, right?
Yep.
That's kind of how it works, right? When you're for
Yep.
loop, those are usually okay. While loop, want to think about that. So again, just a little
Yep.
pattern there. Um, Otherwise, time and space. You said linear time, constant space. That's correct. That's great. That's not the interesting problem. Are there any questions here before we move on to the second part?
Nope.
Okay, great. So part two, removing up to one character anywhere. Um, as a general tip, again, especially when you're nervous, if you can think of a brute force and you can't think of anything else,
Yep.
acknowledge it. Hey, I can only think of the brute force solution right now. I want to just start working on that because I think I can, I think I can implement it pretty quickly. And
Great.
after or as implemented, I'm going to be thinking about how I can iterate and improve on this, and then just start
Great.
coding the brute force one. Because
Great.
what's gonna look really bad is if you sit there thinking about things and you don't come up with something, and
Great.
then you're still going to be coding the brute force. Okay.
Yeah.
So as a strategy, if you can't think of something, if you don't recognize a pattern in the first like 30 seconds, just code the brute force one, and as you're coding it, just continue to think. Like just think about what's going on in the back of your head. Think about like what you might have seen before, etc. And as you do the mechanic, as you actually implement the brute force, that might actually give you some insight about how you can optimize. Okay.
Great.
So as a strategy, don't hesitate to implement the brute force if you can't think of anything else, because otherwise it looks a lot worse. Okay.
Great.
All right. Let me see. Yeah, that was the main thing there. Oh yeah, one thing I did had to say about this, which was even before this, like before this, when you just had the brute force, the time and space wasn't quite correct. Um,
Okay.
the time is correct. The time you did, so iterate through everything in square. That's chill. Um, Space is not constant, and
Oh.
the reason space is not constant is because you used a string slice. Okay. When you slice a string and you concatenate it, that uses extra memory because,
Uh.
well, there's various reasons why. But even without this consideration, when you modify strings in most languages, including Python, and basically
Right.
every language you can name, it
Right.
actually copies the entire string to a new string.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Right.
so that actually does use memory, and
Right.
so you would have been using a linear memory there,
Linear. Yeah.
linear memory there, because you would always have at least one string in that you constructed. Okay.
Right. Right.
And that same applies to this solution here, which is that yes, while the time is now more optimal, it's now linear time. The space is still gonna be linear because you always have two
Right.
strings
Right.
open.
Right.
Okay, so that's a bit of a miss on that part. In terms of the memory, I would say that's not too bad of a miss. Like it's very clear where you didn't know what was going on. It's very clear this is just a knowledge issue. So that's not too bad. But do be aware that like people do kind of care about that when they
Right.
see
Right.
like, oh, this person just doesn't know how Python works. It's not going to be like that might, especially if it's like a Python role or something, they might look down on that because it kind of shows that you haven't really worked much with the language. So a
Right.
little detail there for you.
Okay. Thanks.
Um, Otherwise, what I will say also for the second part was that you did ask for help when you were stuck on the comparison, right? So it gave the hint about how you can optimize it by only searching for a subset of the string every time you do the valid palindrome, right?
Right.
And of course, you can that itself is a hint, but that's like an idea of a hint. That's not really the implementation. So if you get stuck on implementation, hint or not, if you get stuck on it, it's okay to ask for help on that because for most interviews at least, it's pretty clear that that you're stuck, that you don't know what's going on, right? So it is a skill of itself to recognize that you need help and that you should ask for it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So don't think about it in terms of like, oh, if I ask for help, it's done. No, think about it as like, okay, if I don't ask for help, it's gonna look worse. Okay.
Right.
So it's okay to ask for help in those kind of situations, especially because it means that you can carry on and eventually finish the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, that's sort of the overall summary. I want to give any room for you to ask, if you have any question on your side, either about the problem or about maybe more pertinent to this conversation is about like any strategies or any questions you have about being nervous, asking for help, that kind of thing. I'm happy to answer those.
Okay. Just in general, like, what happens? What should my approach be if I've seen the question and I like vaguely remember the answer, but not fully?
Approach being, I mean, there's a couple ways to say this. I would say do the question as best you can, and try
Yeah.
to get to the follow ups. Like,
Right.
I mean, for me personally, if I have seen a problem before where I definitely know the answer, I'm like, oh hey, I've seen this problem before. I know what's going on. Maybe we want to ask a different one. If it's a problem where you're like, oh, I'm not really sure, then I would say just try to do the best you can. But depending on who you are, you can choose. Hey, hey, I've heard this problem before. I don't really know the answer. I forgot a long time ago. I'm not really sure what's going on. Do you still want to proceed with this? I would say most people who are your competition would not disclose that. I'm going
Yeah.
to tell you right now, they won't disclose that. And I know that because I'm an
Yeah.
interviewer. And I know that people have seen these questions before.
Yeah.
But also, generally speaking, it won't really give you much advantage anyways. So,
Oh, I meant more like, let's say I knew what data structure the optimal
yeah.
solution used.
Okay.
But I think it'd be a little awkward if I focused on that out of the blue.
Oh no, I mean that's okay. I mean the thing is do you know that's the optimal data structure because you memorized it or because you actually understand how it works? Right? That's the main thing. It's not a problem for candidates to say, "Oh, this problem, is well suited for a trie data structure because it has these properties." That's very understandable. But if you say, "Oh,
Right.
this is very well suited for a trie and I don't know why, but I think it is," then that's going to be a problem. Okay, so
Right.
it's not a problem to hone in on the optimal structure, if you can justify it and if you can
Right.
explain some alternatives, like, oh, I would consider using a heap, but here are some optimizations that wouldn't quite work, or this edge case wouldn't quite work, right? So if you
Right.
can if you can hone in on that, that's totally fine. It's only a problem when someone can't explain, they can't explain why. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, I agree. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Talk to you later.
Thank you so much. All right.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right, what a lovely individual. Let me send him notes. Okay, so that's that. That's a wrap. We're gonna hop into the resume reviews now. Am I logged into Figma? I am. Nice. Okay. Some comments here from Chilled Beer. Should talk more. Would be my advice to the candidate as a spectator. They are smart. I think they need to practice more LC work and confidence front. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, the thing is you got to be careful with that kind of stuff because it's always. It's not that they don't know they should be talking more. It's that they're nervous and they can't focus while talking, which is a very real. It's a very real thing that people deal with. But I agree with you. Yeah, it would be better if they were generally able to talk more, voice their thoughts more quickly, ask for help, that kind of thing. Yeah, no, I agree. For part three, would the answer be a DP approach? Yes, DP would be one way to do it, definitely. For even for this problem, you can get away with a pretty basic recursive solution. You don't really need to go straight into DP, but yeah, you definitely can. It's not. Yeah, I mean you can. I would say probably recursion's more intuitive. Like in your valid palindrome, you can keep a counter for how many more you're allowed to remove and remove one at a time. So you can do it that way. You know, there's many ways to do this kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Resume review starting at 13:05. Submit resumes at inform. Link in description. All right, where is my form? Here it is. Submit resume. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to copy the URL. There we go. Go ahead and pin that. All right, I'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, what do we got today? Let's see. Today's date, 6/14. 6/14. We got 3 so far. Okay. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's up. I like going up. All right. This person going for computer vision robotics 2026. NVIDIA's dream company. A little concerned about bullet points or reading more as a keyword dump where it might get past recruiters, but would sound odd / over engineered to a technical manager. What are your thoughts? 2 months left. Current ship. .NET, PyTorch, C++, blah 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 blah. Okay. All right. Cool. Sounds good. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So let's take a look. HDL. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay. Heat map, high maps. That word doesn't matter anything. Okay. That's good. I like that. URA. Oh, okay, RA. Okay. Develop and test autonomous. Okay. Which kind of letter? Okay. Develop, test autonomous. Okay. Okay. 4 months. That's fine. Embedded. Okay. Through a streamlined, centralized control interface. Okay. Okay, I like that. That's good. Functionality. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. What is this? Okay. Okay, this is definitely weaker than the other ones, but it's still fine. What is the purpose of this? 2, 3, 4. Okay. I'm not sure what this is supposed to communicate. Okay, this is recent-ish, half a year ago. Okay, that's fine. That's 2 good bullet points there. Oh, thank you for the lowercase. Okay. All right. Couple things here. I would say word soup, yes and no. It does depend. Like this is a bit like a fine line that people walk. I would say this is still okay. I think this is still okay. It still reads reasonably. Yes, a technical manager might look at this and go like, they might not be clear about the impact of some of these things, but I think that's not a big deal because that would be a topic that's better suited for in-person / a behavioral interview anyways. So I don't think that's going to be a bottleneck here. So I think you're actually okay. I will say though that like yes, it does read a bit. Like it may be like a couple more words here. That would be too much. But that's you're a bit on the edge. What I could maybe recommend is like what I could like this is up to you. I wouldn't say this is really like important, but you could instead, and I don't recommend this to many people, but you have a lot of words just so I do. You can make like a subheading here that has like, all the technologies used in that role, and then that way it's that way you can remove the need for all the keywords and the bullet points. So you could just move them around a bit to clean them up in terms of like reading, but I would say right now it's still fine. If you have any more, it's gonna be a bit much. You had another question. Which was, that's not a question. Oh, do you think the certifications are fun to put on? Your certs over here. I'd say that's okay. Look, your dream company is NVIDIA. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you to remove your NVIDIA certs. Okay, I'm not saying remove your NVIDIA certs. So again, this is what I say about you wanna live yourself in a way that you can minimize regret. if you don't get the NVIDIA opportunity with the NVIDIA certs on, you won't beat yourself up. So keep them on. That's going to be okay. But I will tell you right now, if it's not NVIDIA, no one's going to care about those certs. All right. That's a good resume overall, though. I think this is a strong resume overall. Keep it up. Good stuff. Strong one to kick it off today. Wow. Okay. All right, next. There'll be some strong guys out of Waterloo. Love to see our Waterloo bros. Okay, this guy. All right, this guy's comment is aiming for ML internships, data engineering, data science, broadly backend in that order. Okay, the closer data or ML engineering, the better. In my resume, I try to compensate for a bit of non-traditional academic route. Graduated CMU, Infosys, didn't like that, blah, blah. Postgrad, blah, 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 blah. UBC non-degree and class assistant engineering. Okay, okay, second bachelor, okay. Sorry, next semester. I thought the BCS stuff was already closed. But good luck to you. I try to communicate coursework and as many technical accomplishments as I can fit for this reason. Okay, I see. Let me have a look. Okay, so stuff over here, chill. Non-degree studies, computer science, that's fine. Okay, I would say you need better courses than that, or just leave them off. That's not really relevant. Like, these aren't relevant to any of the three you talked about, like ML, data engineering, data science. CMU, app design. Okay, so I don't know what's going on in their, in the Doha branch, Doha campus here. No comment. I don't know what's going on with this. I would say though, if you have, I mean, I'm sure you thought about this, but like in terms of you were there for 4 years. Do you have anything else you can put on in terms of relevant courses? I don't see too much over here, but like these two are relevant. This is definitely a show don't tell. This is a show don't tell. Let me see though. Okay. Go for second BSc. Yeah. Okay, you can see. Yeah, I don't think they'll let you in the BCS program with a previous degree in IS, anyways. But anyways, take a look. Data science intern. This is for like a term. Okay, this is a year ago. ETL pipeline. Okay. Deploy. Okay, is this a one-time thing? This is a one-time thing, or this is like a schedule? Okay. Deploy model. I will put more detail here. I mean, this is not really ML or anything like that, though. Like, this is more like, I mean, reading this is like deployment. Like, you deployed this model that already exists. You didn't do any like tuning or training. If you did, put it in. But I'm not reading that. I'm not reading it like that. ML. Okay, this is ML. This is wait, what? Oh, this is the same time. Okay. Multi-agent content gen. Okay, gen. Okay. Pilot test. Judge internal LLM pattern library. Novel prompt techniques. VC backstory. Okay. This feels a bit wishy-washy here. I'm trying to figure out what actually happened here. So, this is a prototype. That's a good word. And it has some time savings. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, sure. Judge internal LLM pattern library derived from novel prompting techniques. I would say such as what? Like I would say what do these things do? I mean what does it do? It streamlines automation. Like, is this for like N8N? Is this for a custom library? Is this for like what framework is this for? Is this for people to copy paste into ChatGPT.com? Like, I think this is a bit vague here. I think you can expand on this point. Okay. Sure. Okay. Sure. Okay, so the projects is where you gotta shine here. Where the projects is where you gotta shine. Because, I mean, look, let me just put everything again. You said, where the fuck is my list? Here it is. You said prefer ML engineering, data engineering, data science. So ML engineering and data engineering for competitive roles in, I'm assuming you're Vancouver right now. Well, I don't need to assume, it says right here. Like, you need to have either an academic background for that, like a master's type thing, or you need to have previous like worked experience. If you don't have either of those, the only thing you can really lean on is really good projects. And I mean, like, they have to be like solid projects. Okay. I'm just setting the expectation. Of course, I wish all the all the best, but just setting expectations. Okay, so let's see what you have here. Okay. First things first, we need the links. Okay, we need links to this, links to the projects. You put them here, put them here, put them here. It doesn't matter where you put them, but you gotta put them somewhere. Okay, remote conferencing app for vision impaired students. Okay, very cool. Own full life cycle for accessible video conferencing MVP of 8 weeks, 25 user stories, functional stuff. Okay, so some PM stuff here. I like that. Okay, cool. Implemented the entire iOS code base, Swift Firebase, media pipeline. Okay. Raising call success from less than 60% to 95%. Okay. To fix some media pipeline crash caused your success to be low. Now it's high. A custom patched. Okay, what was the button? Okay. I think that's a good point. I think that makes sense. 4% agile team running sprint planning. Okay, yeah. So this point is a bit of a wishy-washy. So for this one, I would like to see a lot more about the technical aspect. Okay. Couple things off the bat. First thing off the bat is you use Firebase. No shade against Firebase, but Firebase does not communicate skill. So I would like to see you talk about some of the, let's say, like why was this chosen, right? We say for example here it's 8 weeks. 8 weeks. That's a pretty short amount of time. Firebase is probably the right choice there, right? But one thing I would like to see is that because you seem to be leading a lot of these things with, for example, user stories, writing requirements, I would like to see some thought about like what other things did you consider, how did you settle on the tech stack, etc. That could be interesting to talk about. Stuff like, for example, the third point here is completely is pretty air. It's pretty like there's nothing there. Okay. Okay, speech to text model transformer LCN Leetcode PyTorch. Okay. Achieved a 40% average numbers and distance, Libra speech test, blah 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 blah. Okay. Okay. Open up the data like that. Send improved iteration cycle optimizing dropout tuning, a cycle like RLR. Okay. Training remote 2x and okay. Optimized? Is this optimized? No, I couldn't say it. Okay. This is something. I will say as a note here, that's a bit confusing. Is this is in reverse chronological? Well, this is in chronological, and this is in reverse chronological. So I'd say you should make those two consistent. This could be good. I would like to see a little bit more detail, a little bit of technical detail about how you accomplish this. Right? Like, what were the parameters being considered? That's a big one. I mean, over here, I think this is a good example, right? Like, these are some things that you talked about, right? Why did you stop here? Like, were there other ones that you could have considered? Was this a time constraint? Was this a class project? I think there's a bit more detail you can put on this one because this is actually an ML adjacent project. So I think you should be putting a lot more emphasis on this sort of work. I think this is a good start. I think this is good. I think this is interesting. All right, hackathon. Okay, lowercase lat, scikit-learn lowercase lat. Okay. You have Java here. Do you have Java in your thing? No, that's just a thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's definitely going to be more stuff that you need to kind of consider, but I think this is a good start. I will give one more tip. That's high level tip. Okay, you want to go for ML DSD. That's cool, but I would also recommend you make a second resume for broadly what you call broadly backend. Okay, when you have this resume, like when you're applying to broadly backend resumes with this resume, you probably have cut a lot of like other stuff that you've done in the backend. Hopefully with like these two, for example, you gotta put them back. Right, like for example, this resume, you might see some success. Hopefully, you see some success with the ML engineering, data engineering roles. This one will be a hard sell for backend. It'd be a hard sell for backend. So I would recommend you make a separate resume for backend roles. And also, since you're UBC, I would recommend you get into. I mean, I'm not sure if you're there, but get into 340, get into 440, get into 540V if you can. Get in those ones, okay? You have to get into bare minimum 340, 440, or just don't even consider it. Yeah. If you have the link for all projects but one, does it look strange when a project is missing a link for non-uniformity? One of my projects, that's fine. Yeah, no, put whatever links you can. If you can't put a link there, they might ask why, and you just tell them, oh, it's a school project. Yeah, not a problem. I mean, at this point, most recruiters know, like most recruiters know that, um, you can't post school projects publicly. All right, what's this one? Okay. This guy seeking first co-op placement, 2025 fall. Not having much luck. Some generic rejections. Hoping anything for the first one. Full stack, data science. Later on. Okay. Okay. Before we move on, Bilal said something here. 320 this summer, 4 next semester for the courses I'll put in more higher level. Yes. I would say, I mean, the thing is, courses fall into the umbrella of show, don't tell. Like, if you tell me you did a course, but you have no projects, that tells me very, very little because the bar to pass a course is basically underground. Like, it takes basically no skill to pass courses at, like, basically all universities, okay? So, to demonstrate skill, you actually need to use it in a project or at work, right? So yes, if you don't have a project, then you have to put your course on it. But if you have a project, that's much better than just listening to courses. Yeah, but 340 next semester, get into 340, get into 440. If you don't have 340, you just simply will not be considered because like 340 is the introduction, okay? Would you say that adding more projects and be cutting an internship? Yes, I would say so. Um, you have to hyper optimize your resume for machine learning if you're going for those roles because you don't have a master's in ML and you don't have better work experience in ML. So to give yourself any chance at all, I would hyper optimize to go for ML and then make a separate resume for backend. All right, this guy. Okay, stuff over here, stuff over here. Languages. Okay, okay. Phil Mora. Okay, cool. Okay, okay, I see. All right, cool. All right. So, come stuff over here. All right. All right. I see. I see. I see. Okay. Two comments right off the bat. First thing I will say is we gotta go with the the XYZ format. Okay, XYZ format. Did X by doing Y. So accomplish X by doing Y with the outcome of Z, or any of those orders, right? For example, this guy's resume is a good example of that. Okay, develop this to my brush is too fucking thick, man. So like develop this. Do I have a highlighter? Oh my god, I'm a Figma genius. Oh my god, that is way thicker than I thought. How do I change the size of this? All right, I'm a boomer, right? So you develop this to perform this, right? Here we have some other examples. Let's take a look at this one. So added this functionality, enabling this, right? So think about when you have the XYZ accomplish X by doing Y by actioning Y with the Z outcome. Think about at least having two of those in your bullet points in every bullet point, right? That's a more consistent way. First of all, that's an easy way to keep your language consistent, and second of all, that's an easy way to keep yourself honest. Like if you can't put two bullet points there, is it worth talking about? Is it competitive, right? And if you find that none of your things you can put two bullet points to talk about, then you got to make sure that you make better projects. You have more impact in your projects. You extend your coursework, extend the course project, etc. Whatever it may be, right? But just think about it from that mindset. Here's one again, right? So this is the outcome. This is Z. The outcome is you generated 50K in revenue, right? And you did that by designing this, and you achieved a 40% conversion rate, whatever, right? So think about that framework, having the 3 points to talk about per bullet point, and you want to have at least 2 of them in every bullet point. Okay, so that's a way to think about it. Okay, so let me take a look at it. Let me take a look at an example here. Let me see. Yeah, so this is a personal portfolio, right? The goal here might be showcase projects, so showcase projects by maintaining by building a portfolio with this tech stack. Open it with that, keep the language consistent. That's going to go very far. One thing I'll just also say, now this is not resume advice anymore, because a resume here, that doesn't really matter. More general advice I have to say is to for the purpose of internships and to get like become competitive, the differentiating factor is quality and not quantity. Okay, you want to showcase that you can go deep in a domain and make a single project really good and really comprehensive, than instead making a lot of projects that are surface level, like academic course level stuff, right? I mean, there's a couple of things to note here, right? Like this one is like what? This one is 210 probably. 210 is fine. It's a good course. Everyone's got to take it, but you got to realize that every single human being in the lower mainland has taken 210, or the SFU equivalent of 210, which is like what, 217 or something? Doesn't matter, right? That's not competitive, right? It's only competitive if you've done the project and then you have added something to it. Like you deployed it, or you added a nicer front end that's not, what's it called? Swing, right? Like if you build the project and then you extend it, then that's good. But if you just build the project, that's not competitive, right? So think about it from that perspective. You have to do something extra. You have to do something that's a bit better than what everyone else has done to pass the course, okay? Easy ones to consider. Let me just look at what we got. Oh, you got Mongo. You almost have Mern over here. You almost have Mern. Do Mern over here, okay? What do you have over here? Is this two projects? I think this is two. I think this is, I can't, yeah, this is two, okay. The spacing here is a bit weird, by the way. This is like a hackathon or something. See, this one feels a bit shallow, right? That one feels a bit shallow. So I would say, if you just want to showcase, you can use some AI, some API stuff. That's probably not worth putting that on. I would instead absorb that into a product you like a bit more. Use that product to demonstrate AI skills, API, whatever it is, and then build that one up a bit more. Right. One thing I'm seeing here that you don't have any DevOps/cloud. Okay. There's no DevOps/cloud over here. I would say this is very easy to accomplish. Right. Just very simply take your favorite project, deploy it. Right. Deploy it. DigitalOcean's cheap. That's what I want to know. I know Heroku might be cheap these days. I don't know. Like find something, deploy it. Learn about deployment. Learn about continuous monitoring. Are you on GitHub? Put it on. I mean, yeah, obviously on GitHub. Right? Make a Jenkins pipeline, make a Travis CI pipeline, whatever it is, right? Do something a little extra, helps really sell the product to be a bit more comprehensive. If you do have a single comprehensive project that is bigger than the rest of your project, should I write more bullet points? Yes, absolutely. I don't know. I've never said that there should only be 3 bullet points. I don't know who's spreading that bullshit. If you have a project that's way bigger and way better, you should put way more stuff there, right? Like, I don't know. Like I thought that was obvious, but I guess I have to say it. Like yes, you should proportionally put in space, like use space based on how relevant that project is, and it doesn't have to be quote unquote big or comprehensive. Maybe it's a small project, but it's very relevant to a specific role you're talking about. Right? The previous guys applied to ML, and ML, that's great, right? But if you have a small ML project, that's still going to be more relevant than a generic front end project, right? Even if it's a really comprehensive front-end project, that's just completely irrelevant for ML. So yes, you should use space based on resume. You should use space on the resume based on the relevancy of that project, and that typically means how comprehensive it is, how much effort you put in, what is the proposal, how many people working on it, like how big it is. If the bigger the project, the more space it should take. Well, of course, there are exceptions, like such as if it is if it's not relevant to the role, right? So yes, there's a lot of different things you might want to consider. And I would recommend you generally, put in space if you need space. You can go over 3. No one's going to complain. No one should complain. All right. That's all for today. That's all the ones we have today. So I want to just end the stream here. Thank you for tuning in. And I will likely catch you guys next week.